At the beginning of the film, we see that some Navy officers had captured a boat. On this boat, there was a man named Phillips and another named Anders. The soldiers' captain asked them for their passports and started interrogating them. Phillips, laughing in a humorous manner, said, "We are just fishermen." Anders also mocked the officer, which made the captain angry. The captain then said, "I will burn your boat." The soldiers began pouring oil over the boat. Suddenly, Anders swiftly slit the captain's throat in one move, and Phillips also started shooting the remaining soldiers with a gun. At the same time, another one of their companions emerged from inside the boat with a gun. They killed all the soldiers and left them in a terrible state. Meanwhile, there was another large Navy ship close to them. Just then, their friend Freddy emerged from the water. He had already planted a bomb on the soldiers' naval ship. Soon, the soldiers' naval ship exploded in a powerful blast. Now it was clear that these people were not just fishermen. But then, who were they really? After this, the film takes us back 25 days earlier, where we see that the British president was extremely worried. This was because Hitler's German military had caused havoc in Europe and had now begun to take control of the seas. The Germans had some submarines that could destroy any naval ship in the sea with their explosive power. However, the president's secret agent had discovered something crucial. These submarines relied on a specific ship that carried the fuel and ammunition needed to operate them. To destroy this ship, the president needed some brave individuals. He entrusted this task to a British colonel who was loyal to him. The British military colonel found these brave men, and one of them was named Phillips. Phillips was brought from prison. As soon as he arrived, the first thing he did was drink alcohol. The colonel then gave Phillips a secret mission: to blow up a large German ship that carried the fuel and ammunition for the submarines. Phillips agreed, but insisted on assembling his own team. The first member of his team was Hayes, a hot-headed man. The second was Freddy, an expert at blowing up even the largest ships. The third was Anders, skilled in knife combat and archery. Lastly, there was Jeffrey, a master strategist. The colonel told Phillips that finding the other three members would be easy, but Jeffrey was deliberately in custody. Phillips said it didn't matter. Jeffrey was already in their way, so they would free him first and then proceed with their mission. The colonel also mentioned that a woman named Stewart and a man named Heron would carry out separate missions. Stewart's task was to distract the German officers, particularly their commander, while Heron would seek help from a friend for their mission. In the next scene, we see Stewart and Heron inside a train full of German soldiers. Their objective was to steal vital information from a briefcase. Stewart cleverly engaged the soldiers in conversation and skillfully swapped the briefcases. They then went to a cabin and transmitted the information to the colonel. Afterward, Heron discreetly placed the swapped briefcase back in its place. Meanwhile, Phillips was making a plan with his team. He stated that their first priority was to free Jeffrey. We then see Phillips and his team climbing a mountain. Using binoculars, Phillips spotted the prisoner's location. However, two soldiers noticed them, but Anders quickly killed them with his arrows. This triggered a fight. Anders and Phillips stormed inside, firing bullets everywhere. Soldiers were spread out all around them, but Phillips and his team fought their way through. Anders threw a bomb into a room, eliminating everyone inside in one strike. Meanwhile, Freddy stood outside, using a machine gun to take down the remaining soldiers. Finally, they reached Jeffrey and freed him. With this, Phillips's team was now complete. On the other hand, Stewart and Heron had reached an island where the German military commander Luhr was stationed. Stewart's job was to keep Luhr distracted so that he wouldn't pay attention to other matters, including the ship that Phillips's team planned to blow up. Stewart and Heron approached Luhr with a gold business proposal. Using her charm and words, Stewart successfully captivated Luhr. The next day, Luhr himself went to Stewart, and they became friends, sharing laughter. Just then, Heron arrived and said, "To celebrate this friendship, I want to throw a party for everyone." Meanwhile, Phillips received crucial information. This mission had to be completed soon because the German soldiers had begun their attack on Britain. At that moment, a British ship arrived and ordered Phillips and his team to abandon their mission. But Phillips, determined, declared, No matter what happens, I never leave my mission incomplete." He then continued forward with his boat. Meanwhile, Stewart and Heron met with a man named Kambili, who had a large stockpile of explosives and bombs. They told Kambili about their mission to persuade him to join them. However, Kambili was skeptical and did not trust their mission. Kambili then challenged Stewart, asking, "What can you do?" Stewart replied, "I have received 2 years of military training." Hearing this, Kambili laughed. But then, Stewart stood up and took aim at a glass bottle with a gun. She continued shooting, hitting her target every time with various types of guns. Impressed by her accuracy, Kambili agreed to join their mission. Phillips then explained the entire mission to Kambili. They planned to blow up the ship carrying the fuel and ammunition for the submarines. Kambili was responsible for arranging the explosives, while Heron was assigned to cut the power on the island. Stewart instructed Heron, "Keep Lure distracted at the party." Heron reassured her, "Don't worry about that." Later, Heron was planting a bomb to cut off the island's electricity when 3 soldiers arrived. However, Heron always carried a small gun. He quickly pulled it out, shot 2 soldiers, and killed the third with a knife. Meanwhile, Stewart convinced Lure to go to the party by helping him select his outfit, even though he was initially reluctant. On the other side, Phillips and his team reached the island and waited for the lights to go out. At the party, Stewart entertained Lure by singing to keep him occupied. Meanwhile, Jeffrey and Anders infiltrated the ship they intended to steal. During their conversation, Lure accidentally said something that made him realize Stewart was Jewish, and the Germans had intense hatred for Jews. Furious, Lure took Stewart captive. Meanwhile, Jeffrey and Anders engaged in a fierce battle inside the ship, killing soldiers one by one. Once the ship was cleared, they used a torch to signal Phillips and began securing ropes to the vessel. Lure dragged Stewart to a torture chamber, put a cigarette in his mouth, and demanded, "Who are you?" Before she could answer, a massive explosion occurred, startling Lure. He immediately called his soldiers and rushed toward the ship. Phillips and Kambili were ready, firing their machine guns at the soldiers. A wild firefight broke out. Lure's senior officer reminded him that Hitler had entrusted him with the ship. Enraged, Lure shot and killed his own superior. Lure then ordered his men, "Chase them with small boats." But just then, as per Phillips's plan, the smaller boats exploded. Realizing that Stewart might know where the ship was being taken, Lure's soldiers captured her and placed her in a car. However, Stewart still had her small gun and shot Lure in the head. Just then, Heron arrived and rescued Stewart from the soldiers. Phillips had sailed far with the stolen ship. Soon they saw a small boat approaching. It was Stewart and Heron. They took them on board and headed for London. However, upon reaching London, they were arrested for disobeying orders. Kambili was allowed to return to his island. The British president, however, said, "Even though you disobeyed orders, your mission saved many lives. You will not be punished. From now on, you will work for me." He arranged a grand feast for them, and Phillips's team rejoiced. With this, the story ends.